everyone, my name is Mariah. I am a 12th grade student from the International School of Bangalore, and I am here with Dr. Shoiba Saldana. Dr. Saldana is one of Bangalore's renowned gynecologists. Up until 2000, she was a professor at St. John's Medical College in Bangalore, after which she founded Enfold India, an organization that aims in improving adolescent healthcare. After receiving her diploma in counseling, Dr. Saldana started conducting sessions on human sexuality and child healthcare for police, doctors, and child lines. With healthcare being an extremely important aspect in today's world, it is necessary that we gain an outlook on the topic from someone so experienced in the field. So, Dr. Saldana, we are very fortunate to have you here to explain to us how young women can better take care of themselves.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Happy to be here.
so let's talk a little bit about health, okay? So what are the typical health risks faced by Indian women that they should be aware of?
Yes, actually, if you look at it, the health problems that women face are primarily because of the reproductive system. They also have the other diseases which which are affect men too, like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart problems, and other cardiac issues and things like that. But the one that we would be worried about mostly are about the menstrual cycle, about the uterus and the ovaries.
If a girl gets her menstrual cycle and she doesn't have access to sanitary napkins, how could she take care of herself?
So, sanitary napkins is a pretty new um, invention, actually. Traditionally, women always used cloth and they washed the cloth, and it worked pretty well. There were no problems because a lot of people would say, oh, you can get some infections and things like that, but that's not true. If you use clean cloth or you can nowadays, you're getting these eco-friendly, reusable cotton pads, which are easy to wash and easy to use too. So they can use those. Another thing which I'm thinking should start coming in, especially for younger girls in villages who are also going to college and things like that, is about using the menstrual cup, because menstrual cup is something which reduces the water, because sometimes in the villages you may not get access to water all the time, or you may not have enough water to wash your clothes and things like that, and a menstrual cup would also help a lot.
And I think it is something that people are using more and more every day, right? It's I think a little more handy than sanitary napkins, if I'm correct.
It's actually cheaper too, because a menstrual cup may come to from between 300 to 700 rupees for one cup, and it lasts for 2 to 3 years, which is cheaper than sanitary pads.
Yeah. And especially for women in the rural areas who may not have that money to keep buying sanitary napkins over and over again, I think the menstrual cup will be something that will be really useful for them. Um,
Plus, sanitary towels, they say a woman uses around 13,700 pads in one life. Can you imagine where all that is going? Because this is plastic and chemicals and things like that, which are going to create problems in the landfills.
yeah. Given that most Indian women in rural areas do not have access to doctors and cannot get regular checkups, are there basic precautions that they can they can take to keep themselves healthy?
Well, one of the important things is primary preventive health care. And that is the one thing which will prevent a lot of problems. Like, for example, if you look at cancer of the cervix or cancer of the breast, they have found that these can be picked up easily at an early stage of 1 and 2 stage, which is completely curable as long as women were aware that they could have it and they would know where to get the help from, right? The most important thing I think for a woman is to be able to know her body and understand her body. And for this, it's very important that we talk about the menstrual cycle and women's bodies, how it reacts and how it behaves. I'll just give you a small example. When a girl's periods start, maybe sometimes between 10, 12, 14, 16, along also when her periods stop, when a woman's periods stop around the time of menopause, it can be anywhere between 42 and 55. Her periods do become irregular, and that's very normal. But people are always scared that if your periods are irregular, there's something wrong. They go to a doctor and they often take tablets and pills which are not necessary.
Yeah.
So it's very important to understand this, that cycles can be regular, and understand, that we don't need to take medicines for it each time.
Yeah.
But we also need to know which is dangerous. Like if the periods are going on for more than 10, 12 days, they're very heavy, you're having clots, or there's a lot of pain, then also you need to go and get it checked up to see what the problem is.
Yeah.
Another issue is that women need to understand that if they are very tired, not getting enough sleep, not getting enough rest, they're doing a lot of hard physical labor, they're not getting enough nutrition, it does affect their periods. Mental stresses can affect periods. Women who face domestic violence at home, their periods get affected. So they need to understand that there are other lifestyle issues which affect the period. So it's not just about going to a doctor, but also understanding why these things are happening and taking care of those. A simple thing women can do often is have a small kitchen garden, because most women don't get enough roughage. So having green leafy vegetables, having gourds, all these which are locally grown, not far off vegetables, but stuff that is grown around you, are very good. A lot of women think that if they have sesame seeds, or if they have a papaya, or they have something which they term as heat tea, it causes heavy bleeding. But that's not true. These things don't happen. Another thing is about women should learn about contraception. What are the contraceptive methods available to them? How to use them? Because women should never be forced to have a baby they don't want. They should always be able to have a pregnancy when they want to have it at their time.
Yeah.
A lot of women end up having a baby within 1 or 2 years of another one. Very tiring, exhausting, causes lifelong issues, and she cannot take care of both babies. So obviously, one baby gets neglected.
So now on the topic of pregnancy, what sort of food do you think women should eat during their pregnancy and post-pregnancy in order to stay healthy? In order for them to stay healthy as well as the baby.
So obviously, what keeps a woman healthy is good for the baby. So a lot of people tell the mother, don't eat this and don't eat that. Some people have things like, if you eat white things, your baby will be fair, which is not true. In between, a lot of women would throw away iron tablets, saying if the tablets are black, then the baby will be black. So, there's a lot of social pressures which force women to make unhealthy choices. It's very important that women eat a very balanced diet, that there should be proteins, there should be, if they are vegetarian, they can have a lot of milk and curds, and they can have dry fruits, they can have peanuts, they can have seeds. These are good proteins. If they're non-vegetarian, they can eat egg, they can have meats, fish. All these are really good. And they need to have a lot of green leafy vegetables. Somehow we have so much green growing all around, but we don't eat them.
From what I've seen in the rural areas, women do tend to stress out a lot during their pregnancy. What should they eat? How should they take care of themselves? And so I think it's really good that you're shedding some light on that, because it is information that is lacking. So
And also pregnancy is a normal state of the human body.
yeah.
It's not a medical disease, but we make it into one by forcing the woman to become like a patient, which is not right.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about cervix cancer. Do you want to explain why cervical examinations are so important?
So cervical cancer is the commonest cancer in women in rural India. And a lot of the factors which are causative for cervical cancer are there. That means early age at marriage, having multiple pregnancies, pregnancies at an early age, not enough time between pregnancies for the body to recover, malnutrition, having a partner who smokes. All these things can trigger cervical cancer. So one of the things women need to start working against is not getting married early, spacing their pregnancies out, and demanding their reproductive rights. That's very, very important.
Yeah.
So, and cervical cancer, you don't really need to do a pap smear either. If there is a good paramedical nurse or a lab technician or a doctor, if they just examine the cervix, a lot of cervical cancer would be picked up at an early stage where it would be totally curable for the woman.
So now let's move on a little bit to sexual abuse. So I have interacted with a lot of women who go through depression and mental illness, but they are often abandoned because of this, and they're often abused because of this. So what should they do in such situations, and how should they prepare themselves for that?
So there are two areas that you spoke about. One was about sexual abuse and the other is about mental depression. So
Yes.
let's take sexual abuse once. The first thing is sexual abusers feel they are entitled. There is a lot of power imbalance for girls and boys. And the fact that men feel entitled to express their sexual feelings and urges and take advantage of a young girl, believing that their power prevents her from speaking out or talking, especially if it is a person who is a senior person in her family, uncles or parents, friends, or an elder brother, or even, cousins and things like that, sometimes neighbors. Very often we find abusers are people known to the family or related. The first thing we need to understand is what the abuser is always wrong. And the fear that girls have, if more and more girls start speaking out against it, like if you look at a Hathras um, gang rape, she had been molested earlier and there had been comments passed on her, and she didn't know whom she could tell to prevent it from happening, right? And that is the arrogance of a patriarchal society, a society which is very casteist, and there is power in the higher classes and castes and not in the lower caste. So it's very important that women stand up, and the best way is by grouping. So, like for example, a lot of women go out together to the fields. They come in together. They work together. And if one person starts harassing them, everybody needs to talk about it. Speaking about it, this man is not good. He's doing this. He's abusing girls. And I think it's very important that the family stands by the girls and says, I know so many families where the parents know that so and so person abused their daughter, but they're still allowing that person to come in during festivals and family, uh, various family functions and all that. They should just ban the person. They should be like, this person is not coming anywhere near our house because he harassed a daughter of our house. That's it. Bottom line. I think these are very, very important.
So they all need to support each other, and their voices
Yes.
together will bring about awareness and therefore prevent that issue.
Exactly. It is never the fault of a girl. She can go out alone, she can walk alone, she can wear any clothes she wants to. Getting abused is not her fault. So it's a question of what's in the mind of the guy. It's nothing to do with what the girl does.
Yes. But at the same time, they need to prepare themselves and know that something like that could happen, right? So, like you said, go in groups, be willing to voice their um, not opinions, but what has happened if someone does get sexually abused.
Moise, they have the right to voice out their discomfort, because most abusers of the family test first. So they'll touch the child, squeeze the child, give a kiss, and the kid is feeling uncomfortable, wondering why is this happening? But I don't know, is it okay or not? So it's important for parents and family to tell the girl it's never okay. Nobody gets the right to touch you. Even if they love you very much and even if they didn't mean it, doesn't matter. If you feel somebody is hugging you or kissing you, don't like it, tell me and I'll tell them she doesn't like it. That's it.
So in that way, there's that education about such topics that's lacking, right? That
And not just education, it's about knowledge and standing up for your rights.
yeah,
To be able to say you don't get to do that.
correct. Yes. My last question for you, finally, would be: is there any advice that you can give women from the rural areas who wish to become doctors or wish to go into the medical field sometime soon?
Well, I would love it if there were more women doctors, especially women from rural India. There are classes they can undertake, they can study effectively. Um, they can also use certain classes when they want to get into medical college, because it is possible to get a scholarship if they do well and to use their contacts, and also talk to the Department of Women and Child in their district, find out if seats are available and work towards it. It would be wonderful to have more and more girls from rural backgrounds becoming doctors.
And because going into medicine is such a, I wouldn't say tedious, but it's a very long process, right? So, is there one quality that you would recommend having um, if
You
they
need to
wish.
love, you need to love the subject, any subject, whether it's medicine or architecture or, journalism. Unless you love the subject, it's tough. Any course would be tough, not
Yeah,
just medicine.
you have that passion and drive to actually do the
Right.
subject.
And another thing is, you were talking about depression in women. I think is very, very important. It's something which is not noticed and it is largely ignored. Some of the major causes, like I was reading an article where it was talking of migrants in India. The greatest cause of migration means that you're living in a place or you are settled in a place which is not your home where you were born. And the greatest cause for migration in women is marriage.
Oh,
So marriage means a woman is pulled away from her own home and settled down in a totally different place where she doesn't know anybody, she's alone, and she has nobody she's familiar with. The food may be different, the climate may be different, so many things. And she's living in a house with new people. It is a situation which is fraught with chances of depression. The other thing is, during pregnancy, women are often married off as a free housekeeper. Like I've heard of people saying, some of my older patients for 45, 50 saying, I feel so tired nowadays, I can't really work. And the husband says, I think we'll get our son married, then we'll get a daughter-in-law to do the work.
oh my God.
So you are getting a free housekeeper, and then she becomes pregnant, but she's still expected to do all the work in the house. And she is treated very badly because a lot of girls are just told very clearly that once you get married, the family has spent a lot of money, your parents have spent a lot of money getting you married. So, we don't want you back. You better adjust to the in-laws. So the result is she feels trapped because even if there's a lot of domestic violence, a lot of harshness, she's not able to talk to her parents. And of course, we have dowry harassment like crazy. All these things result in a lot of chances of depression. And it's important for women to be able to have outlets to speak, to get counsel, to be taken care of.
Yeah, but I think women should definitely go for counseling. I think there's just that problem that, they don't want to open up about it. They don't want to speak about what they're going through and about the depression.
Not that they don't want to, but they don't feel anybody will listen. And they feel they will get into trouble and they will face more torture from families if they speak out.
Yeah,
Because we all have this concept of omerta, which was, the mafia used to call it about silence. You don't speak bad things about anybody, especially your own family. And they would call it like washing your dirty linen in public. But if a woman's getting beaten at home, she's not being fed, she's not being treated properly, why should she keep silent about it? So that is a social silence which is created, which silences her. Not that she doesn't want to speak about it. She can't.
her voice is being repressed in that way. Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much, Dr. Saldana, for being here and talking to us about those different issues. We were very lucky to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.